Okay, we are down the shore and we have a very, very special guest today, Damien Wright, and he is at SQS Title. And before you shut us off, we are going to make this as interesting as possible because, hey, to get to the table, title plays a really big part of that, right, Damien?
It does. You don't really think about it when you're buying a house, but you need title, right? It's the only insurance that, looks at the past, you know, things that happen on the chain of title to see if that is free and clear and that you can buy it. So it's super important. Nobody really knows what it is. A lot of times they think it's homeowners insurance, so I get a lot of those phone calls. But it is super important in the process, and especially when you want somebody that is the middleman to hold your escrow, right? To have somebody that's not part of the transactions, but to hold the money safe and sound and make sure that it gets to the closing table.
Right. And before we even dig into that, I have to tell you, I think you are one of the best dressed people in real estate.
Thank you.
It's custom 3-piece suits.
Yes.
So tell us how that started.
Sure. So, when I got into this industry, I was running nightclubs in Philadelphia, right? And I kind of fell into this like most people do in real estate. You kind of fall into it. And I think I had one suit, and they always say it looks like, it was your dad's suit. And it wasn't. It was just real baggy and everything else. And I remember my wife, Carly, was like, you should probably go and get yourself a nice suit. And I was like, well, I'm broke, so I can't do that. But it's an investment, right? So my wife pushed me. And I was like, okay. And I remember, going to this spot Indochino and putting on a suit. And when I got it, it just made me feel so good in the morning, just for myself, just to wake up and go, all right, let's get the day started. And I realized that everyone else looked at me like, oh, what a professional. You're dressing up every day. And it really was just for me to feel good in the morning to go, let's get to work. So I started like a little hobby where I bought more suits.
That's so much fun. Yeah. When I was in college, my husband, we were dating, I would tell everybody he had 4 suits because he was an accountant, or he still is an accountant. So I was just so impressed he had 4 suits. So custom-made suits is even impressing me even more.
Well, thank you.
So you also, I've seen some of your social media. You don't do home improvements in your suits, right? I saw one.
I have at times, yes. It wasn't intentional. It was in the middle of doing a settlement, and then I was like, well, I have some time before my next meeting. So, I was doing a renovation in my condo in Margate, and I was like, let me just stop by and, check the place out. And I just ended up grabbing a hammer and some screws, and I was like, I think I could do this. So I was just like, this would be pretty funny. So I sent some pictures to my wife, and that's how that video came out. And I was like, yeah, just pop by in my suit.
I love following you. I really do. So let's get back to title and some of the things. So we are down the shore. So being down the shore presents some interesting challenges, opportunities. So one of the things people like riparian rights and what does the title company do to protect my buyer with
Sure.
Riparian rights?
Yeah. And what riparian rights is, just in the general term, is that there was a free flowing waterway that was once there underneath, the property or through the property. And what that means is the state owns some of it, right? So you want to make sure that when you're purchasing a house or when you're selling a house, that the state either grants you or gives you some sort of approval so that you have direct ownership, or you at least know what you're getting involved in, right? It might be like, that's fine, the state owns half of it, we're not looking to sell this or pull money out of it. But the biggest part about it is involving somebody in title to kind of run your title to see if there is riparian rights, to see if there was a waterway that once ran there. It's super important, and it's one of the big things down the shore when you're going through the process of buying a home. And even if you want to reach out beforehand, we can kind of do our due diligence to find, something good for you.
That actually happened to Joanne Kent, my colleague. She is not on the water or near the water, but there was a riparian claim that was holding it up maybe a little bit, and then because you're not looking for that.
No.
Besides that, I mean, there's what are some other things down the shore title's different than maybe in Cherry Hill, Morristown, some of
Sure.
the other areas.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, there's always dealing with estates, right? There's a big, thing with estates and heirs. So one of the main things in title is making sure that the person actually owns the property, right? And you want to make sure that the rightful heirs own it, and you're getting the LLC docs and making sure that everything is free and clear for you. So in terms of the process, I think the biggest things are, figuring out if the correct LLC is the seller on there. If there was some renovation that, there's no mechanics liens that are going to pop up, right? We want to do our due diligence there. And the riparian rights, title is title, right? And we want to make sure that everything is exactly, when the seller owns it, it's free and clear. When you buy it, it's free and clear. And, we just do our job.
So one of the, I was looking at your social media, and one of the craziest things that I saw is alligator hunter. The seller couldn't get back to you.
Yes, that's right. I almost forgot, but I don't know. It's like, how can I forget that?
How can you forget that?
That was amazing. So, yeah, we have this seller, and we're trying to get back to him, and I believe we're waiting for him to sign some paperwork, and he has no cell service, and
Of course not.
it keeps coming in and out, in and out. And I remember getting a hold of him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm down the Everglades hunting alligators," and I was like, "I don't know what that is a metaphor for, but." Okay. I said, all right, whatever we can do to make it easier for you, just get back to me when you can. Come to find out, he was actually hunting alligators in the Everglades. So that's why he couldn't get back to us. Never heard that before, but that's, that's the day to day for us sometimes when you hear that.
That's crazy. So
Yeah.
the big message is when you are in the process, in order to get to the table and close, you have to stay in touch with your title company. And SQS, you do a great job with staying in touch, communicating with everyone. It's tell us some of the things that make you different than
Sure.
other title companies.
Yeah. When I got into title, I knew that first thing was just listening to everybody, right? Because a lot of times there's a lot of noise everywhere, but it's like, well, what does this person want, or who are they working with? How can I, give them that same service or be better, right? So it was really just service and communication and listening was the, my brand, right? Along with the suits, right? So I show up professional, but it was service, communication, and listening. And just repeat those steps with somebody, gives you a shot. I think those are, really wholesome and true things that people can rely on, and rely on a title company when they say they're going to do something, answer the phone, right? Send wire instructions, close on time, be punctual. The little things make the most impact, I think, with somebody. And my job has been since the beginning to give that experience to an agent.
Right.
So,
Buyer gets to pick title company, correct? What advice would you give to buyers? The difference between maybe a title company that is used to doing business down at the shore versus somewhere else?
sure. So I think, going back to the service and communication, I always tell agents, give the buyer my phone number, have them text me, call me, ask me questions about the process. What is title? Let me tell you what title is, right? Let me tell you that there's two different policies. There's the basic and enhanced. Which one do you need? Let me break this down into, really easy terms for you, right?
Talk about that. What?
Yeah. So the basic policy, is basic, right? We're going to make sure that it's free and clear, so that you're taking ownership of the house and there's no liens, judgments, or previous mortgages. The enhanced is an extra step in that process where it's going to protect you from things like property lines, right? If you get the enhanced and there's a shed that you're like, oh, that's actually on my property. Things like that come up. Or the biggest one, which is a lot of times, people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about basic and enhanced because it's insurance, right? They're like, okay, just handle it. But the biggest thing is post-closing forgery, where if there is a forged deed and it comes after closing, with the basic, you're not protected, but with the enhanced, you are. So it's something where down the line, if you find out, oh, that seller wasn't really a seller, the LLC was a fraudulent LLC, and something comes up, you're protected with the enhanced policy. And it's a one-time fee at closing, so you're paying it at closing.
Does fraud happen more down here because it's second homes, vacation homes, investment homes? Do you see some of that?
I do. Yes, it's a lot with vacant land,
Okay.
and
We see it from our MLS all the time. Like, beware that this is fraud and this person does not own that land. And it seems as though it's coming up more and more.
it is, and it's everywhere, right? I mean, it's probably in every market, but I think the biggest thing down the shore is a lot of the vacant land that, we always say, hey, put a lien on it, right? Get a, put a lien on that property. Maybe do a, I'm trying to remember what it's called, a, like a HELOC. Sorry. Yeah. So you put a home equity line on it. That way, if somebody tries to, fraudulently, pass the deed on, they will have to go through the mortgages, which is just, the same thing. You could always call us and check it for you. But I think the biggest thing is just putting a HELOC on it or putting a home equity line of credit on there if you have a vacant lot so that it can't happen.
As an agent, what are some things? I mean, some of the stuff is kind of obvious that can't meet with the seller. What are some other things?
Yeah, I think when the seller is just not being able to get on, FaceTime, right? When you can't meet with them or talk with them, or they just go, hey, I'm too busy, I have to text you. That's always a red flag. I always say, have them send their passport, have them send their ID. People are getting really good. Well, you will see fraudulent things like that, but we can talk to the consulate. We can see if that is verifiable. We have our underwriters that we work with to go, hey, is this a real ID? Is this a passport that is not, fake? And I think that's the biggest part that I have agents send to me, and just send it over and I will check it for you.
Sure, properties have their own quirks. What are some things that, as let's say, a buyer should beware of? I mean, think about the buyer's position. They may be working with their lender, they're working with their realtor, they are now working with the title company. What are, besides communication, what are some other things that they can do to be ready for the closing and not hold up the deadline?
Gotcha. I honestly think it, for me, it always goes back with just talk to us, talk to your agent, figure out, just ask them, is there anything else you need from me? Right? Do you need, does the lender need something? Should I call them? What, if the title company, do you think they need anything? How's everything free and clear? How's everything looking on title? I think just keeping everyone in the loop is the biggest part of our jobs, and making sure that the buyer who's looking, if they're a little nervous in the beginning, right? When you get the title in, maybe give them a call. Hey, everything looks pretty good. I think it's going to be a pretty quick closing. Nothing's going to come up. We'll keep you in the loop. Here's my cell phone. Give me a call if you need anything. Just having that human to human interaction with somebody kind of, you can see their shoulders kind of drop and feel more relaxed, which is my job, right? It's to relax, especially if they're sending, $50,000 to a title company that maybe they don't recognize, because nobody recognizes title companies. They recognize Mora, right?
Right.
On Sea Isle. They recognize the realtor or the lender. Title is more in the background. So when that happens and they're going to send that money, a lot of times, a lot of title companies will just be like, oh, here's our wire instructions. You can always, have them reach out to me so we can have a conversation. They can see my social media. They can see, hey, he's a real person. This is where I'm sending the money. It makes people feel comfortable.
That's scary, the wiring, because especially with the homes down the shore, that we're talking significant amounts of money in the trust. And that brings me to Qualia. Like, sometimes I'll get pushback from a buyer or seller, like, why do I have to do that? But explain, why do they have to use Qualia or something to protect them?
So Qualia is a secured platform that allows us to communicate with the buyer, the seller, the agents, the lenders, all in a secure platform to make sure that nothing is being guided the wrong way, right? To make sure that nobody's stealing the information or going into, your Gmail account, which, just think if you're in a coffee shop, right? And you're just like, oh, I got wire instructions. Well, anybody could be, hacking into your computer to grab your email to send you, their wire instructions. And it's happened.
It
right?
happens.
It happens all the time. And that's the one thing where you work through Qualia. It's a secure portal. You're safe. You're good. And that's just the most trusted way that we know to make sure that, the seller's getting their money, the buyer's sending their money, and they're getting their property.
Yeah. You mentioned LLCs before. Is there some changes with New Jersey with the LLCs?
I just know that I ask for the entity docs and make sure that that is the correct person. And
That, yeah.
yes,
Because a lot of people do put them in LLCs, so that's
yeah,
another thing. Big hot topic this summer, the mansion tax.
yes,
So for those of you that don't know, up until this summer, the mansion tax, which is any purchase over $1 million in the state of New Jersey, is considered a mansion, and the buyer would pay 1% of that tax. But then our whole world's got up.
yes, very quickly too.
Very quickly.
It
I know.
was- yeah.
I had two under contract. One was over 3 million. One was over or just under 2 million. Two different scenarios, and it was. We really went to title to say, okay, who's responsible now? What are the things that?
Yeah, it was a lot of what the hell's going on. It was just on the buyer. Now it's on the seller, right? And then now it was 1% on the buyer, and then it was a tiered system where it went from 1 to 3, 3.5%, depending on the sales price, where the seller had to bring that to closing. So every title company was scrambling, trying to get information out. I know I was doing videos and posts about it, trying to email everybody and text them, just because things were changing, and obviously there's still nuances to it. And, if you get certain deals under contract by this timeline and this timeline. But yeah, that was a huge change for us. And then we kind of had to get together to make sure all the agents and all the lenders and everyone was informed. So then you guys could inform your sellers, hey, this is, and the buyers, this is changing.
It was a crazy time. So the ones that I had under contract, the buyers were very, very stand up. They said, listen, we signed a contract, we were paying the 1%. If it was under $2 million, it didn't matter. But if it was over $3 million, I did have a seller that would have been $90,000. And so the buyer paid 1%, and then his 60% he paid at closing, but then got a check back from the state of New Jersey because that wasn't fair, that we were already under contract with that. So
Yeah.
has that had an impact on deals or moving forward? It's a big chunk of money for.
It's a huge chunk of money, especially down here
sellers.
at the shore when you're talking about, anything over, anything over $1 million. I remember when I first got started, I was doing a lot of like share sales, and I was like, it was like $50,000. So it's a different world,
Right.
when you go from, a property that's $50,000, $100,000 investment property to a $5 million property in Sea Isle or Margate or Ocean City.
Right.
So to answer your question, Maura, a lot of the sellers right now are kind of waiting, right? And
Right.
if they were going to sell, they're kind of like, you know what? Let's see if this changes, because it changed that fast, from one day to the next or 1 month to the next. So why don't we just take it off the market and wait? That's what we're seeing a lot of. But it depends on everyone's situation too, right? If they're,
Right.
Moving to Montana, next week, they're like, well, we're going to sell it regardless. But we have seen a lot of deals kind of come off market because of the fact in that price point.
Down the shore, we have a lot of inherited properties too. Anything about inheritance tax or anything that impacts title too, or?
Yeah. And I think the best thing is that we have a whole team that is of experts with that, with our closer, Karen Monty, our processor, Laurie Emenecker, and our underwriters and our president, Tori. So I think when it comes to inheritance taxes, I kind of lean towards them to kind of be the experts on it.
Right.
That's usually what I do, because that's a whole nother kind of avenue that our clients need to be, up to date on.
And it's a very emotional time for families that, the parents or grandparents had this home shore house in their family for so many years. And so, but it's nice to have title to be able to help them through.
Yeah,
some
and
of that.
I think that's the biggest thing in knowing that, our company, SQS, it's, me and a lot of others that you have support from. So I don't pretend to know everything in title. I try to, but for things that, maybe I've, dealt with or maybe not, have my expertise in, I lean on my team, and they are fantastic. So it's always great to do that with you trust your colleagues.
I had a mentor early on in my career, and she said, Maura, this is a realtor. Maura, I've been doing this for 35 years, and no two deals are the same. And boy, oh boy, is she right. There's just so many things. And it's good to have the expertise of like yourself I can bounce an idea off you and ask
absolutely.
what's going on with that. Besides the alligator hunter, any other like wild settlements that you thought this is never going to settle? Anything come to mind? Or
I mean, there is a ton that come to mind. The alligator one was interesting. Let me think about that one, because I mean, there's always something that you have to deal with. When title comes back and there's a fraudulent deed, or the person that's trying to sell the house is not the actual owner. We've seen that, right? Or the person coming to closing is not the owner, right? Different things like that. We have closings where somebody just doesn't show up, which is always odd. But yeah, there's all these stories that, I'm sure if I, get down in the Rolodex of everything, I'm sure there's a bunch.
Right. We could tell you a bunch of stories.
I'm sure.
So back in the day, you would, now at least we get all the information 3 days in advance. That I think eliminates a lot of the scary things right at the end, and and it's important, even with all your expertise, all the support you have, for buyers and sellers to really take a look at those Alta sheets and make sure that everything is proper, and you have that time too.
To kind of review the Alta statement, which is the settlement statement. If anybody doesn't know the acronym,
doing too many.
No, it's you know what, and it's funny when I write an email. Sometimes I'll say like EMD, and then I'll put in parentheses like earnest money deposit. Yeah. Just because you have to realize, if you're talking to somebody who is a first time home buyer, they have no idea what you're talking about. So it's important.
Exactly. Exactly. So hopefully we cleared some of that stuff up for title and make it a little bit more. Is there anything that you think buyers or sellers at the shore should know? Is there
I think that it's always important to, please reach out, and ask me, what is title, right? What happens when I go under contract? What is the process, right? The contract, it gets signed by both parties. It comes to us. Then what happens, right? So I can kind of give you guys a breakdown of the step-by-step so you guys feel comfortable in, working with us, but also, knowing the steps of the process to get to the closing table and feel good about purchasing a house, which is a big purchase, and a lot of people are nervous.
So now we get to the fun stuff.
I love it. Love fun stuff.
Not title related though. It's about you. So when people come to the shore, they're teenagers usually. Their first job is down the shore doing something. What was your first job?
I worked at a liquor store in Millville, New Jersey. Was my first job, stocking shelves.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And also, speaking of Millville, you went, another famous person's from Millville, Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. Yeah. He lived a couple miles away from me, but great family. His dad was, I think, my Little League coach, history teacher in high school.
Wow.
Great family.
And you had baseball aspirations.
I did. Yeah, I played at Millville, played at Rutgers, traveled a little bit, played in Colorado. Had a lot of fun. It feels like a different life at this point.
Right.
Right? Like, was I a pitcher back in the day? It feels like another lifetime ago, but it was a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite boardwalk food?
Because of my grandmother, my mom, right? Funnel cake.
Oh my God.
And only because every time she ate it, it just looked like somebody threw powder in her face and down her blouse. And it was the funniest thing. And she would always yell at me for making fun of it. But I feel like that is, childhood. It's just, the smell of funnel cake, and then obviously choking to death when you inhale before you bite because the powder just goes right down.
That's so true. We're down the shore, but you have other locations. Maybe you should mention where some of your other locations are.
Sure. Yeah. So we operate in every shore town, right? We have an office in Ocean City. We have an office in Margate. And I think the biggest thing is title anymore is kind of a traveling kind of business, right? When we're closing, we kind of want to make sure that all the parties are able to close where they want to, and especially the agents in your office and our office. So in terms of what we do, those are the areas we're in. We're also in, Haddon Township, Moorestown. We're in Center City, Philadelphia, Doylestown. We're all over PA and, in the counties in South Jersey and down the shore.
That's it. Most famous person that you've met down the shore or in business?
Most famous person.
Probably
we've
have
met.
an NDA with settlements.
We
I'd
do.
like to say.
We do. And
So
I can't
aside
say.
Aside from that,
Yes.
just on the boardwalk or on the beach or just hanging around the
Yeah,
shore.
I would say, without saying, probably from the Eagles, I would say. And then, you know what? No, actually, yeah. Well, a couple people from the Eagles, but also, and I can't remember his name, but we were eating breakfast and we were next to, I forget his name, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's his name. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah. I didn't talk to him, but he was there.
He was
so
there.
I feel like
Yeah,
that counts.
Hey, touch of greatness.
Yeah.
You know what? Thank you so much, Damien. We really appreciate you joining our Down the Shore podcast, sharing your thoughts and insights. And I also want to personally thank you. You are so supportive of all of our Compass agents. You are there for everything, whether it's CE or open houses or just about everything, and we really appreciate it. And I look forward always to see what you're wearing. And I think it's hysterical. We're both in green.
I know. This was not planned, by the way. We showed up like this, and of course we're both wearing green, which is awesome. But I also want to say thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute pleasure, and it's great to see you. And I just enjoy helping people and making sure that the process is easy and simple and stress-free for them. So if there's anything I can do to be of service and to help, I'm here.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Damien.
Thank you.
So we love to end every episode with a love story of people that met at the Jersey Shore, down the shore. And coincidentally, Patty and I went to Little Flower High School together. So, and I didn't even know you met your husband at the shore.
Yes, I did.
So tell me the story.
Okay, well, it was back in 1991. And Al was on, my husband Al, who could not be here, unfortunately, was on his way to Cape May to meet some friends to stay with them for vacation. I was in the Springfield with my girlfriend Colleen. I was in on a shore house with 7 guys, and Colleen and I were the 2 girls, and we used to go out all the time together. We had just met that summer, Colleen and I.
That is so typical, like people getting shore houses together and from the Philadelphia area.
And doing that. So we were in the Springfield in the afternoon listening to the Rage Band, and Colleen was interested in this boy who, I don't think he was staying at the house across the street from the Springfield, but she could see him through that little octagon window, if you remember that, by the door. She was jumping up and down to try to see him. Well, when Al looked at me and we started laughing, he's like, "What is she doing?" And I said, "She's looking for a guy that she liked." So that started us talking, and we closed the place at 8 o'clock. Those days when they used to make you leave at 8 o'clock.
Oh, right.
Remember?
Yeah.
And then reopen it again. But we left at 8 o'clock, brought him back to the house. He met all my friends. He continued on to Cape May. He called me later on during the week and took me out to dinner to 1 Mile Landing. We went to dinner that week.
Is it 2 Mile Lane?
Is it 2
2
Mile?
Mile. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
2 Mile.
I love
2
it
Mile
there.
Landing.
I love
But it was like the end of the summer. August the 24th we met, 1991.
So can I just say, back in 91, there were no cell phones.
No, I know.
So to date us back in the day, you really had to find out a lot of information and figure out how, because your shore house probably didn't have a phone.
Right.
We didn't have phones in our.
No, we did not.
We didn't have TVs. We didn't have phones.
Although he did get in touch with me to go to dinner, so maybe our house did have a cell phone at that time, and that's how he reached me. But anyway, it was August the 24th, so the summer was almost over at that point. After the summer was over, we got together. Actually, Colleen hooked up with Rich.
The boy that she was trying to.
Yes,
Aw.
and they married also. But the
Where
thing
are
is, I
they?
don't keep in touch with her. I know because I really didn't know them that well to begin with.
Right.
Four of us went to the Rod Stewart concert, and we have been going out ever since. 6 months later, we were engaged
What?
And
6
then-
months after meeting?
after meeting.
How cool.
And then we were married in October of 1992. So it was like
that was fast romance. I love it.
We've been married ever since, and always wanted to live down the shore. We eventually sold our house that we were living in, and we live down here full time now. So
And that was fun to reconnect with you, seeing you around the island. And so, how many years married now?
30, what is it? 92?
I could do the math, but I
yeah,
can't.
I know, 92.
And you have
This is
children?
26. One daughter.
One daughter.
One daughter.
Okay.
When after she was married and settled in her house, we decided
To
this was what I always wanted. I mean, when we weren't down the shore, we were thinking about the shore, but we always came here many summers down the shore, and
that is so awesome.
it's been wonderful.
That is, it's very, very special. The love stories
It
get
is,
here.
and over the years, it's been interesting to see how many places have changed. Springfield's not there anymore.
Kicks has
Costa's
grown.
not
We're
there.
here at
I
Kicks.
know,
They
Kicks-
have
well,
so many.
Our first place was a condo right above Kicks, right on Landis. But I said none of this was here when we were.
Right.
They
right.
since built it up, and it's really nice here. We don't come down at this end of town as often as we should, but we'll have
that's
to make
great.
it a point.
Patty, thank you for sharing your love story.
More, it's been a pleasure.
And
Good to
tell
see you
tell
again.
any of your friends that met down here. We're doing this.
I
and
know.
we'll
I'm
get
sure there are
more-
plenty of people who met and
lots
have
of
stories.
very special love stories. Thank
Okay.
you. And for us, it's great because then they buy houses down here.
I know.
Little plug for the real estate.
I know. That's good.
Thanks so much, Patty.
You're welcome.